Yes.
Sure. Okay. Call to order the April meeting of New Bern's Historic Preservation Commission. Are there any, well, let's have a roll call first.
Yes. Okay. Holly Bales.
Here.
Jim Morrison.
Here.
Gregory Rush.
Here.
Trip Euro. Here. James Bisbee.
Here.
Michael Weekend.
Here.
Tim Thompson.
Here.
Richard Parsons.
Here.
And Mark Bartner is absent.
Okay. Are there any,
We do have a quorum.
any adjustments to the agenda?
None that I know of.
We have certificates of appreciation. Are there any of those?
There are none tonight.
None tonight. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Everyone's gotten copies of the consent agenda, the past meeting minutes, and the outcomes of the previous meetings. If you digest them and there are no questions, could we have a motion to approve?
So approved. Second.
Moved and seconded, we approve the consent agenda, which consists of minutes and previous written decisions. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those are approved. Okay, I have a few opening remarks. New Bern's Historic Preservation Commission is a public commission appointed by the City of New Bern's Board of Aldermen. It's responsible for preserving and safeguarding New Bern's locally designated historic districts, downtown and Riverside, based on U.S. Department of Interior standards, state statutes, city ordinances, and New Bern's historic guidelines. Two of the major tasks of HPC include approving applications for a certificate of appropriateness and preventing demolition of historic structures due to neglect. The HPC holds quasi-judicial hearings. This is one on an application for a certificate of appropriateness. The commission hears sworn testimony and evidence provided by the applicant, by parties who receive notice of the hearing, and by others who can justify that they have relevant evidence and are directly affected by the application. The commission cannot consider comments based on personal likes or dislikes, hearsay, or personal opinion. It can't be directly related to historic guidelines. And likewise, the commissioners will refrain from stating personal opinions, etc. We make our decisions entirely on the basis of the information that's presented at the meetings. Can we swear in tonight's speakers, presenters?
Certainly. So anyone who will be speaking at all on any of these items, please come forward. We will swear you in.
Speaking on the public section, right?
Other comments?
Yeah.
No. Just for the hearings. And Jim first, microphone.
Raise your right hand, please.
Jim, can you pull the microphone closer to your face, please?
How's that?
Oh, that's right.
Okay. Excuse me. Could you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, so each one, please print your name on the sheet of paper here and your address.
While they sign in, just briefly go through the process. The HPC administrator will provide an overview of the application. The applicant or the representative will have an opportunity to comment on that. Proponents and opponents who receive notice of the hearing can present evidence. Rebuttal is allowed by the applicant or by proponents and opponents who receive notice. Others who can justify that they have relevant information and will be directly affected can present evidence. The HPC administrator will present the staff's findings and recommendations. The applicant or representative has an opportunity to make final comments on the application. The commissioners will discuss the evidence and ask for clarification. I will call for a motion to approve or deny the application based on the stated findings, and the motion will be discussed and we'll vote on it. Okay, we're ready for 613 Pollock Street, Tryon Palace.
Okay.
Might as well stay up there.
Yeah. All right. So, oops. All right. This is the application for 613 Pollock Street. Tryon Palace is the owner, as well as the state. Chris Walker is the applicant, and we'll see in a second. He's been authorized by the owner. The description of the project is in this very tiny print here about a new greenhouse, replacing other existing structures there. We'll be talking about that. They list a few of the guidelines and the primary materials. They've checked off the items that they've provided in their application, and Mr. Walker is acting on behalf of the owner. He signed it and dated it, and this is the document that authorizes him to do so with the notarized signature of the owner. So they've provided quite a few photographs of the area. We'll go through some of them here a little slower, but other ones a little quicker. So this is, of course, from the outside, from Metcalf Street, looking at the current buildings there next to the gate. We have the shed with the hip roof here on the end, and then the greenhouse here is the two sloping pieces or three sloping pieces of glass here, and the two little chimneys or vent stacks. And then the background is the new building that's been constructed there in the last few years. So from the inside, that new building is here on the right. The existing primary greenhouse is here in the middle of the photo. That shed is in the background of that. And then there's also a second greenhouse here on the left. So there's the shed essentially from the gate angle, the gate out to Metcalf Street. And another one showing a little bit more and of the side, and also then that the primary greenhouse behind that. Then here's the gate to Metcalf, and so this same building from this left corner, or the southwest corner. This is the western facade, and now you can see the main primary greenhouse on the left. And there is a connection between the two. And then looking back towards the gate, and the shed is here on the right, standing next to the main greenhouse here on the right, which you can't see on this photo, but what you do see is there's this little shelving unit here that shows up on the plan as a shed. And this is another, I think, more recent photograph of the shed in even more dilapidated state. The eastern side of the shed, the northeastern side corner, the western side, and the greenhouse. So all of these photographs are also required as part of the process to document what is to be removed. Here's an interior photograph of the shed. Looking out towards the greenhouse, you can see this is that connecting hallway, I guess, and the doorway to the greenhouse, which is there again. Then what we didn't see before is there's actually a third greenhouse at the end of the primary one, off to the right between that and the wall along the street. So we'll call them greenhouse 1 is the main one, greenhouse 2 here on the left, and the one I just showed you, greenhouse 3, I suppose, for clarity. And this is the inside of greenhouse 1. And Chris, please correct me if I misidentify anything.
No, you got it.
This being greenhouse 2. And then now you'll see yet another shed on the left of that one. We'll be looking at that later, an A-frame structure. Some more photos. And this is still greenhouse 2 with greenhouse 3 on the right. Greenhouse 2. The back of greenhouse 2. This is greenhouse 3, that front, like we saw before, a little closer up. You can see it's more or less tarps on this one and not so much glass. And inside that one. And from the back side of that one, so to say, this will be the northwestern corner. And now this is the proximity of that greenhouse 3 to greenhouse 2. And greenhouse 3 to the wall. And it is really tarps. They just have them gathered up on the ground there with rocks or something holding it down. That is the passageway from the shed to the greenhouse 1, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I just realized that now. I thought it was a different one. And our A-frame shed. This is the side of that. We just saw the left side over here. So this is the side that's basically facing greenhouse 3. And that is the back side of that shed. This is now not the wall along Metcalf, but the wall along Metcalf is in the background. And so this is a wall that's 90 degree to Metcalf Street. And that's a view back the other way. That same, this is the wall of Metcalf here on the right, and that other wall we were just looking at in the background. This is the inside of that one. So, I'm going to have to zoom out a lot here. This drawing is to show a little bit out of order here, but it sets up some of the other information. This is a drawing showing the proposed new greenhouse. It shows the existing greenhouse 1 and the existing shed. What kind of shed do they call that? The Potter shed?
Yeah.
Yep, Potter shed in the front with the wood shingles on the roof. So you can see the footprint of those, and the footprint of the new greenhouse is quite a bit larger. But primarily this drawing is to show where the floodplain line is and to show that this greenhouse is within the floodplain area. So the dashed line, dashed area here is the floodplain, the official floodplain. Let's see, go back and down. So from those set of drawings, it also shows then the foundations of the existing buildings. So the shed here on the bottom and the greenhouse 1 here. The elevations of the various buildings. This is the essentially looking at the back side on the bottom here is the back side of the greenhouse 1 looking back at the Potter shed, whereas at the top the Potter shed is on the left, and the greenhouse is this grid of essentially glass, and the hashed line is the wall along Metcalf Street. So you have an idea as to how high the wall is compared to the other buildings that are in the existing at the palace there. All right, then this drawing shows the new construction. So, as I said, a larger footprint. So on the left, the Potter shed is gone. All the buildings are gone except for the new greenhouse. And you can see the hashed line is the wall. Also notice that because of the floodplain, they have to elevate the ground a little bit, about 2 feet, so that they can build on top of that elevated platform. But also then add some ramping, which we'll also see in the design for access. And this is just the floor plan. It's just a rectangle with a door on each end. All right. So now we'll get into, and we'll maybe go a little quicker through some of these. These are the construction drawings. And maybe I'll go even faster here. So there's nothing of note there. Here's that floodplain drawing again here in the lower left, and the floor plan here is to show the code requirements for egress. This has a bunch of notes and legends and such. All right, now this plan is the existing site plan showing all the existing buildings. So I guess starting in the upper right, we have the A-frame shed, we have greenhouse number 2, then greenhouse number 1. I'm sorry, greenhouse number 3, no, sorry, greenhouse number 2, greenhouse number 3, and then greenhouse number 1 is the largest one, and then the powder shed at the bottom. The other buildings here are to remain. And that pretty much is it. And this also shows the floodplain, and it also shows ground grade elevations and things like that. We need to reference that. And then this is the proposed site plan with all of those buildings gone, and then the new greenhouse with 2 entrance ramps, one at the southern and one at the northern end. And also the space between the building and the wall. Don't remember what that number is, so, but it is relevant. It's 12 feet. All right, next page. Oops. Sorry, that was too fast. This one just has topography on it, along with probably all the utilities. Then we have some details about the drainage for the property, drainage pipes and such, other pipe connections. This is again the drawing about the existing building to be removed, or buildings to be removed in elevation, a series of legends and charts. This is now the floor plan for the new structure in more detail, as well as the ramps that are in more detail. The ramp on the front is a ramp that just goes, or on the south side, just goes in one direction to the west. The ramp goes down to the west, whereas in the rear, it goes in 2 directions. So the plan for that one is here at the bottom, and the plan for the one on the south side is up top. And then that's just a section detail of the materials connecting together and expansion joints. So then these are our 4 elevations of the new structure with the 2 ends at the top. So the southern end is down here, is on the right-hand side. You can see the ramp going off to the left, and then on the back side, the ramp's going in 2 directions. The gray area here indicates an area where mechanical fans and such will be attached, correct?
Yeah, that's an evaporative cooler on the end of the greenhouse.
Okay. And then we have a vent in the top of that, and then on the other end, what do the X's represent?
Those are exhaust fans.
And then on the sides, it's all glass, of course, and on the roof, all glass. The section here showing, of course, the walls are vertical and the roof is sloping, and a larger view from the inside of that same elevation. And we're cutting through the floor here, and we see that it's a poured concrete floor with the edges turned down to act as the foundation as well. And we'll see here in a minute the detail along the exterior of that concrete foundation. Some more details about the two ramps. So this one right here, can make that bigger. This one here on the lower right shows that the concrete will be faced in brick with a top row of a slanted row of brick as kind of a sill that would shed the water. And then we have some structural drawings which are not relevant for us. Okay, and then finally, this very tiny thing at the bottom. It's probably the one thing everybody's looking for. And that is, let me move this down. Dang. There we go. So this is a rendering of what it would look like in perspective from Metcalf Street. And I'll make that bigger. There we go. So obviously most of the building is hidden by the wall, but the rest of it is poking above the wall. These trees are representative of the trees that are there. I know that at least one of these trees is quite large, at least twice the size of one of these trees shown here. So that might vary, and of course, they can always die and need to be replaced or something to that effect. So that is maybe something to consider, but that's essentially the way it would look from the street. That's the visual impact. All right, next thing I have here is the letter from the State Historic Preservation Office, which has to review all state projects that may have an effect on historic resources. And essentially, read a little bit off the top of here. Having reviewed the materials provided, we offer the following comments. Considerable effort appears to have gone into the design and location of the new greenhouse to lessen its impact from primary view sheds and preserve the ambiance of the recreated 18th century museum site. Although the roof of the existing greenhouse is minimally visible above the east brick wall, the height of the new greenhouse will increase its visibility beyond the wall. However, the existing trees between the wall and street help address possible issues with this visibility. While we understand the need to elevate the proposed greenhouse due to the low elevation and flood potential of the site, the increased height, approximately 2 feet, of the new brick foundation, along with the removal of the wooden shed, will increase the visibility of the new greenhouse from Metcalf Street and possibly core areas of the museum property. It is our opinion that some type of screening adjustment to the new greenhouse, such as additional vegetation or a period-appropriate structure, will help minimize this visual impact. We are therefore ready to assist Tryon Palace in determining if additional screening is desirable following completion of the greenhouse. And then we have our zoning and inspections report for 613 Pollock Street. And essentially the zoning administrator has indicated that a departmental site plan review is required for this one. And the chief building inspector that permits are to be obtained from the state construction office for state projects. That's what happens. So the city has no jurisdiction over those permits. All right. Other than that, I'm ready with our report when you're ready.
Okay. Do you have anything else you'd like to contribute?
No, I think you covered it pretty well.
I think so too. Are there any proponents or opponents of the project who have received notification from the city that wish to speak to it? Yes, ma'am. Yep. Hey, could you introduce yourself?
Can you speak in the microphone, please?
Yeah.
Sure.
And introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Rose Williams. I live at 220 Metcalf Street, and I just have some questions.
Excuse
The
me,
greenhouses are
ma'am?
directly across the street from our house.
Ma'am, did you receive a letter about
Yes.
today's hearing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And we've owned the house since 1984, grew up in that neighborhood, so we've seen lots of things evolve. The current greenhouses that are there, when they've had some alterations from time to time, what has happened now with the materials that are currently, I think, on the main one, when the western sun hits them, it reflects
Ms.
on
Williams? Ms. Williams? I don't quite remember if you were sworn in. Were you sworn in at the beginning?
No, I asked, and you said because if it was just public, you didn't have to.
Oh,
Yeah, public comment, right, but if you're testifying here for the hearing, you will have to be sworn in. Go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
right hand.
Sorry.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank
All
you.
right, and
So-
then put your name and
And-
address on the form there, please.
I will.
And
do
Mr.
that
Chair,
before I walk
since
away
she's-
so they
Yeah.
won't have to see
Yes.
it.
Mr. Chair, since she's under oath, if you want to adopt her previous testimony at this portion of the hearing, that may be appropriate.
Yeah. How do you do
If I
that?
went to what now?
The board should adopt her previous testimony that was given before she was under oath, unless you want her to repeat.
I'd like to make a motion to approve her previous testimony before she was formally sworn in.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the testimony before the swearing in. All in favor, state aye. Aye. Opposed?
Okay. Now, you
Continue.
don't have to repeat yourself.
Okay, so the current glass materials that are there, when the western sun hits those, it reflects back on the houses on Metcalf Street. So if you're in the front of your house anywhere down that street, it's blinding. So I would just ask that when they're talking about doing screening, the one tree that's bigger than the other, they're all the same variety, but the drainage pipe from where they use fertilizer actually goes to where the bigger tree is. That's why it's bigger. So just for the sake of knowledge, that's why we actually help plant those trees. But the biggest issue that I have is when they went to build what is now the storage building that they have, it's quite large that's there. And I'm sorry that I don't know the appropriate name of this piece of equipment, but I'm sure you've all seen them when they're paving roads and streets. It's something that has a big, heavy roller. They didn't keep it on site, so it would have to come down the street every morning and go onto site. And it has a tremendous amount of vibration because it has to make the soil and the rock and everything else settle before they can do a foundation on it. What happened was many of us, including me, our foundation cracked, every wall, every ceiling, wainscoting, molding, everything cracked and shifted. I contacted Dana Outlaw, who was then the mayor, and they looked into it, and because of jurisdiction, there was nothing that they could do. So we did contact Tryon Palace. They were aware of it. They had had quite a few complaints from Pollock Street to Metcalf Street. People were having all kinds of structural issues because of this specific kind of piece of equipment. In the end, we paid thousands of dollars for repairs. We sought attorneys, but they said, good luck. It's state. It'll take you forever to get paid for it.
Yeah.
So we literally spent it ourselves, but I would question Tryon Palace, so to speak. Are they going to use that same kind of equipment? Because I could only assume we would have similar
Okay.
problems.
So that's the question.
That's my question.
Okay. Could you comment on that?
I'm not.
Do you know what she's talking about?
Yeah, I know what she's talking about, but I'm not exactly sure what equipment they're going to bring onto the site. I'll have to get my civil engineer involved to see what that would be. I mean, we can bring up that concern, and possibly they can bring it in from the other side of
Yep,
Tryon Palace.
Ms. Williams, was it while they were operating on site, or was it when they were bringing the equipment onto the site?
Both, because they were actually storing the equipment around the corner on South Front Street in the parking lot that was next to what was then Tryon Palace Seafood. So when they would start it up in the morning, it's coming down the street. You can imagine a big, heavy piece of equipment like that. There's a tremendous amount of vibration. But once they got it through the gates, then that went on for like all day. And that was for weeks that they did that. Unfortunately, like I said, we ended up suffering the cost of that.
Yeah.
And I can understand that maybe there's not an alternative. But for instance, when they went to pour concrete, the gates were too narrow for trucks and things to go in. So they had all the concrete trucks running at full speed for days and days and days, and they were hand carting it in. So again, we questioned, why can't you come from the Eden Street side and come through there? And they pretty much told us that, well, it would affect the tourists. So I get that, but we had thousands and thousands of dollars there.
So this is a problem which occurred only during the construction. It's not an ongoing situation.
No, only during the construction.
Okay.
And only that particular part when they were doing foundations and stuff like that. Once they started doing construction where they were putting the building up, you didn't have a problem anymore. But by that time, all the damage was done.
Okay. I'm not sure exactly how we'll deal with that, but appreciate you telling
Bring
us.
it up during construction and talk to the contractor about that.
You're going to work with the contractor
I
to
will.
make sure that that doesn't happen again?
Yeah, I'll bring it up during pre-construction.
Okay. Are there any other opponents or proponents who have received a notification, a letter from the city, who wish to address the project? Are there any present who didn't receive a letter but think they have an issue with the construction that would like to speak? Okay. Okay, we're ready for staff findings.
All right. Okay, so this is the staff report for the project at 613 Pollock Street in the state of North Carolina in Tryon Palace. Chris Walker of the Walker Group is their authorized representative. The historic property name, of course, is the Tryon Palace, built 1767 to 1770, and then through 1952 to 59 was the restoration. And it is indeed a contributing resource in the historic district. The project for 613 Pollock Street is to include the demolition of 3 non-contributing greenhouses, an outbuilding, and 2 sheds, and redevelopment with a new greenhouse, all inside the Tryon Palace compound wall. The New Bern Historic District inventory description was several pages. For the inventory was primarily this: Georgian style and brick, Flemish bond, 3 units consisting of a 2.5-story main house and 2 2-story flanking dependencies positioned in advance of the house to create a forecourt and connecting it to it by curved colonnades. Hipped roofs are slightly concealed behind parapets. In the 1950s, the complex was reconstructed on its 18th century foundations, and the original surviving western dependency was restored. The Sandbeck description was indeed 3 pages that started with, I won't read you all 3 pages. Present-day Tryon Palace stands as one of this country's most accurate and thoroughly documented reconstructions of a major colonial period structure. It was rebuilt on its original foundations during the 1950s, with its exterior plan and much of the interior based upon the surviving original plans drawn in 1766 by the architect John Hawkes. End of quote. There is no mention of the grounds other than the gardens being designed by landscape architect Morley J. Williams. So not much helpful information for us regarding this particular project. So staff submits the following excerpts from the Historic District Principles and Design Standards, also known as the guidelines, are appropriate to this application, the process for which consists of two deliberations. First, regarding demolition, and if the demolition is approved, then redevelopment. So deliberation 1 for demolition, the process for deciding whether to approve a demolition in the New Bern Historic Districts is significantly different for contributing and non-contributing structures. The standards state, quote, a contributing structure is at least 50 years old and is listed in the Department of Interior's Historic District Inventory of Structures. The inventory is created as part of the process for designating the historic districts. As buildings reach 50 years in age, they may also be considered contributing structures, unquote. At least 50 years of age would be built in 1975 or earlier. The 1970 aerial image at right shows no greenhouse at that location. So the existing greenhouse wasn't there in 1970. In the National Register Historic District Inventory, the main building is shown as contributing. The main building of Tryon Palace is shown as contributing, but there is no mention in the inventory of any of the accessory buildings. They are unlisted. So the standards, the Historic District standards state, quote, when a COA application involves a structure not listed in the inventory, the first step is to determine whether it is a contributing structure. And the first bullet is any unlisted building 50 years of age or greater will be evaluated for contributing structure status. An unlisted building determined to be more than 50 years of age does not have to be treated as a contributing structure if the HPC determines that it has no architectural, cultural, or historical significance. Any structure less than 50 years of age will be considered non-contributing unless the HPC finds that it clearly possesses exceptional architectural, cultural, or historical merit. So we insert the comment at this point in the quote from the standards. The HPC can discuss if these accessory structures are more or less than 50 years of age and whether they have any, quote, architectural, cultural, or historical significance or, quote, merit. Unquote. And then continuing with the quote from the standards, the second bullet is the age of the structure will be based on relevant information, including tax assessor data, deeds, historical surveys, maps, and pictures of verifiable sources and dates. The HPC will also consult with the SHPO and ask for a documented evaluation. In the event that the HPC and SHPO cannot make a reasonable determination of the age, the applicant shall have the privilege of stipulating the age. So staff, again, inserts the comment, the 1958 version of the Sanborn maps does not show any accessory buildings other than the two houses on Pollock Street on the entire site, flanking the main gate. The tax assessor data and deeds have no information about the subject buildings. A SHPO letter is included in the hearing presentation package. We just heard it earlier. Third bullet is findings and relevant information leading to contributing status will be documented. And fourth, and we add, if contributing status is determined, documentation should be provided. And then the fourth bullet is if the determination of a structure is based solely upon age, the property owner may request a detailed SHPO review to confirm its status. Following SHPO review, the HPC will consider the evaluation and making a final determination. Staff recommends the HPC vote to determine if the accessory buildings are contributing or non-contributing before proceeding further. So I would do that.
Okay.
So you need to kind of discuss if you think the buildings, the three greenhouses, the Potter shed, and the other shed and that shelving unit are any of which are contributing.
No. So everyone has heard the presentation. Are there any questions or inputs on that in terms of it being a contributing structure or not?
I think we've heard no evidence that they are.
I do. I don't think there's anything that warrants classifying them as a contributing structure.
Okay.
Any of them, all. Is it? Yeah, are we counting that shelving unit as shed, Matt, or
Yes.
is that a separate?
Yes. I
So
suppose.
we're talking about 3 sheds and 3 greenhouses?
Yes. I got it.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? We should vote at this point on whether it
Yes.
to be contributing or not.
Right, and you want to make sure you include some terminology that includes architectural, cultural, or historical significance or merit.
Okay. I would entertain a motion then that this building be construed as non-contributing with the appropriate language that Matt has described.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the proposed structures for demolition, from evidence, there's no evidence that they are greater than 50 years old. There's no architectural, historical, or cultural significance to the structures that have been identified or that we can identify. So they're not contributing structures, non-contributing structures.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we deem this structure or structures non-contributing. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? They are non-contributing.
All right. Okay. So, now demolition cannot be denied for a non-contributing structure. Demolition of a contributing structure requires 2-part COA where demolition is first considered and if allowed followed by consideration of the redevelopment plan. Demolition shall not proceed unless both parts of the COA are approved, in either case, unless both parts of the COA are approved. So then for guidelines for demolition, if the HPC has determined that the structure is a non-contributing structure, you would use or reference 6.4.1. Other possible relevant guidelines would be for the HPC to 6.4.4, prepare drawings and photographically document the site prior to demolition. Include photographs of interiors, exteriors, architectural elements and context within the streetscape. We did see those, if you feel that was sufficient. And then 6.4.5, to notify preservation organizations and allow for the salvage of design components, architectural features, and building materials for reuse. In addition, the guidelines stipulate in rendering a decision on demolition, COA, the HPC should address the following 3 considerations. Consideration 1, to address the historical, cultural, and architectural significance of the structure, which you have already done. And 2, address the integrity of the structure. What are the conditions of the foundations, floors, walls, windows, doors, and roofs of these various buildings? And staff has suggests that each structure is different. Judging from the photos provided, some of these parts are in terrible condition, some are obsolete, and some are in good condition. Secondly, is it a hazard to public health, safety, and welfare? Again, staff submits that each structure is different. Judging from the photos provided, the southernmost structure with a hole in the roof and pieces falling off could be a safety hazard. Consideration 3 is to address attempted preservation efforts. So have options for rehabilitation been explored with preservation organizations? Staff is unaware of any such attempts. Has the applicant been unsuccessful in seeking alternatives to demolition? Staff is unaware of any such attempts at that. And have alternatives for structure relocation and sale of the property been pursued? And staff is unaware of any such attempts. So then, statements of fact based on the information contained in the application in staff's judgment are: 1, the project is a proposal to demolish several non-contributing accessory structures in the New Bern Local Historic District. 2, the demolition of non-contributing structures may not be denied. 3, the proposed redevelopment for the site will need to be approved by the HPC in deliberation 2 before a COA and a demolition permit may be issued. 4, the zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. And 5, the demolition of these structures is not incongruous with the historic district design principles and standards. And the HPC shall deliberate on this first segment of the process before proceeding to deliberation 2.
We're not going to vote on this because we have no say in whether it's demolished or not, right?
No, you vote.
You have to vote.
We are going to vote?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
Well, because you could have conditions.
We're going to condition it, yeah, okay. Is there any discussion, questions?
I don't think so.
Tear it down.
Mr. Chairman,
Hearing
I'd like
none.
to... Are we ready for motion?
Yep, ready for motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we find that the application for demolition of the structures as defined in the application, we approve the demolition at 613 Pollock Street, that it is not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinance, sections 15-411 to 15-429, and New Bern's Historic District Guidelines based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. 6.4.1 says that a non-contributing structure we cannot deny the demolition of that. 6.4.3 has to do with postponing the demolition until development and building permits are approved. As far as the considerations are concerned, I think consideration 1, we haven't cleared the hurdle there in the sense that there is no historic, cultural, or architectural significance of the structure, so the other considerations are somewhat moot. Findings of fact, the project is a proposal to demolish non-contributing structures. The demolition involves the demolition of non-contributing structures cannot be denied. The redevelopment for the site plan needs to be approved before we can issue a COA to demolish. Zoning administrator and chief building official have reviewed the project and commented on that, and the demolition of the structures is not incongruous with New Bern's historic district guidelines.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. You all heard it. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. It's approved.
All right, we'll move on to the redevelopment. Okay, points of HPC policy. The policies and rules of procedure adopted by the HPC for evaluating a redevelopment plan include only 2 sentences. Any new construction proposed for the site will be evaluated based on historic guidelines for infill construction. A redevelopment plan must include the following items as conditions for approval of the redevelopment plan: a review and preliminary approval by the building inspector, and a reasonable time frame for completion of redevelopment. The chief building inspector and the zoning administrator have reviewed the proposed sketches and have commented accordingly. So that should take care of the first one. Time frame for completion of the project has not yet been proposed. So staff submits the following historic district guidelines are appropriate to this portion of the application based on the plans and descriptions provided at the time of the preparation of these recommendations. For utilities, 2.3.1, 2, 3, and 6. For landscaping, 2.4.3 and 5. For accessory structures, 2.6.1. For design principles, 3.1.1. For infill construction, 3.4.3 and 4. For foundations, 4.1.3, 5, and 6. For walls, trim, and ornamentation, 4.2.5. For accessibility and life safety, 4.7.2. And contemporary materials, 5.5.1, 2, and 3. Statements of fact based on the information contained in the application are: the proposed structure is located in the New Bern Local Historic District. The project is an infill accessory greenhouse structure. The proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the Historic District Design Principles and Standards, also known as guidelines. The zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly, and the application is not incongruous with the guidelines. HPC may want to consider the following conditions. Revised plans according to the changes agreed upon at the hearing should be submitted by the applicant to the HPC staff for approval according to the guidelines and prior to beginning construction. Number 2, revised or new plans that show the location of exterior mechanical units, exterior lighting, and landscaping that minimizes the visual impact of the foundation walls shall be submitted by the applicant to the HPC staff for approval according to the guidelines and prior to beginning construction. That's the end of our staff report.
Okay. Discussion, questions? The issue that Richard...
Chair.
I'm sorry?
I do have a question, Richard, about the issue that you brought up at the workshop, the drain and the cistern. Has that been satisfied to your...
I'm satisfied from the documents that Mr. Shelley produced that
Okay.
that's okay.
Is that what you were going to say?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. Okay, other questions, concerns?
Now, we have an accessory structure, replacing an accessory structure. The only question I have, and I know the state is concerned about the wall height, but I don't believe there's a guideline that we have that references how high something can be beyond a wall or fence. Is that true?
That's my understanding.
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
So it's an issue with the state, and we do encourage them to work with you and have more trees, perhaps.
I thought we addressed that under the landscaping plan,
Yeah.
trees outside the wall.
But
The
they have
state
to go-
did say after the building was complete, so
Yeah,
we're not there yet.
yeah. I think you'd want to look at the visual impact then and decide. Yeah. Other questions?
Well,
No, Mr.
whatever motion we have, I hope that we can add some kind of condition to note Ms. Williams' comments concerning mitigating any damage to
Yeah.
adjacent contributing structures.
I was going to suggest that be a condition also. You're shaking your head,
No,
but...
I don't know if that can be a condition of the COA. I think we should note it for the record, and I think that we should include it in the minutes, but I don't know that it's a proper thing to be putting in
But there's potential damage to other historic
I
structures.
feel certain that Chris will take care of the applicant's concerns and communicate, or not the applicant, the public member's concern and communicate with them accordingly. I mean, unfortunately, we don't have any guidelines against construction methods or that talk about construction methods, but I think it's important that the problem was shared so that it's known, and now that it's known, that gives the applicant a chance to deal with it in a more appropriate manner than happened last time around.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that'll be brought up during
I
construction.
have a question, actually. You made me, after shaking my head no, your comment makes me think of the guidelines where we have, in every section, we say something about the work shall not damage the historic materials.
Yes.
Of course, we're meaning in the subject property.
Or in the application,
Right.
not across the street from the application.
Yes. So I think our jurisdiction doesn't go beyond the property line of the subject property, just to be clear.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that Mr. Walker has heard the neighbors and would be willing to work with the contractor to minimize any effects of compaction or concrete placement during construction.
I have, and I've written down all the concerns, and I have her name here that we can reach out to if possible.
And you have the authority to mandate them if you see something there that's going to cause some damage?
During construction, we can guide the contractor to make them have a different route into the palace if needed.
Okay.
We'll bring up the concern.
All right.
We'll make sure something happens for it.
Okay, any other questions? ready for a motion to approve the application for COA.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move we find the application for certificate of appropriateness for 613 Pollock Street to be not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinance, Section 15411 to 15429, and New Bern's Historic District guidelines based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. Utilities 2.3.1, 2, 3, and 6. Landscaping 2.4.3 and 5. Accessory structures 2.6.1. Design principles 3.1.1. Infill construction 3.4.3 and 4. Foundations 4.1.3, 5, and 6. Walls, trim, and ornamentation 4.2.5. Accessibility and life safety 4.7.2. Contemporary materials 5.5.12 and 3. Findings of fact: the proposed structure is located in the New Bern Local Historic District. The project is an infill accessory greenhouse structure, and the proposed design, components, and materials meet the requirements of the Historic District design principles and standards, also known as guidelines. The zoning administrator and chief building official reviewed this project and commented accordingly, and the application is not incongruous with the guidelines.
Either of the conditions are you including?
Not that I know of.
Second.
Moved and seconded, we approve the motion as stated. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Project's approved.
Move to
We
issue
need
a-
a
COA. Issue
Move to
COA.
issue a
Need a
COA.
motion to
Yes.
issue
Second.
COA. Moved and seconded. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Issue COA.
Thank you all so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you, Mr.
Everybody
Williams.
want to jump in on that? You ready, Jim?
Ready.
Okay.
Yep.
So our next application is for 507 East Front Street. Here's the application. We have the property owners are Walter and Greta Russell, and the applicant is Christine Russell. And you can see there's an attachment for the description, a list of the various guidelines, and another description for the materials. They provided site plan photographs, annotated notes, etc. And Ms. Russell is acting on behalf of Mr. and Ms. Russell. And she has signed this document. And this is the document that authorizes her to do so for her father and then for her mother, each separate one. Right. All right. So this is the condition we found on the 7th of March. So with that, and we've discussed this at the design review work session. Here we have a detailed description of the work and the history of repairs, which hopefully you've read over. They're primarily working on the front porch with various pieces here enumerated, and the back porch. And so this is documentation of the porch before they began the repairs. To note here is, you see in the very center of the photograph, we have a turned post, and we have the railing for the porch, and then at the top, okay, just to the left here, you can see there's some spindle work, turned spindle work in that decorative in this area as well. But also note that these two columns on the left are square columns, posts. We have some more photographs of the prior to condition. So this is now the front of the porch. Again, a turn post here. There's some damage here at the bottom of the turn portion of the post. We'll see a closer up view of that in a minute. And see all the same elements we saw before. This is a view of some of the porch flooring. There's title to the next section, photos of damage. So this is that damaged post that we highlighted before. Much more prominent visualization of that damage in this angle and close up. And then another post had this damage. Then looking down at the floor after some of it's been removed, just a view of some of the structure involved here. After some of the flooring has been removed, sorry. And then some more about the structure. Then they have some photos of like homes with square posts. These homes are either on our street or within 2 blocks of our home and are just some examples. So there's this one. And this one. And this one. This one. This one. This one. And then proposed materials. This is essentially what, 2x6s, I suppose, like deck boards. And here's a sample of the wood around the base of the column, and a closer up view of the flooring. Then here's the top of the column, and the paint, which isn't really, except for the fact that you have paint. And then this is a view of a square column, it appears. So wood column. And a sketch by the applicant. Quite nice.
Very nice.
Zoom in on this.
My husband, I'd like to say I did that, but not me.
Oh.
We'll give you credit because you're here.
Yeah.
You have
His
an artist.
background's in architectural design, so.
You have an artist in your family? So here, besides the nice drawing, we want to look at essentially the proposed design here. So the posts are all there, the railing is all there that was before. Same with going down the stairs and the newel posts at the bottom, and the spindle work across the top, and I guess the trim underneath the floor, at the edge of the flooring around at the top of the foundation. All right, wait. There's more. Photo of the rear porch railing by the applicant. This was the one photo that they were able to provide of the quote-unquote before condition. And you can see it had been square spindles they were all centered on the handrail. I don't think we see the bottom. Oh yeah, we do. Yep, and centered on the bottom rail. And then, of course, the corner post has a cap on it. So, and they provided a description of that in this email exchange that we had. And then this is new to the packet today. I did get a photograph of the current condition. They went ahead and built this on the back. I'm going to make it larger. So it may not be done, but you can at least see that the spindles or the balusters are all centered under the handrail and the bottom rail. There may be a spacing issue on the ones going down the stairs. And I don't know, I think you were planning on still putting caps on these posts, right?
We preserved the exact same caps. We didn't change anything. I think that's exactly, all they did was take out bad wood and replace it. So we didn't make any design changes to that back porch. My dad was coming home and he almost fell down the stairs, so that's why we put it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, we preserved the caps and it'll look exactly the same. So there's no change to that at all.
Okay. Well, except that it's all new wood.
Yes, because it was
Yeah,
rotted.
okay. And I think that's... Yeah, so we just have the Z&I form at the moment. A zoning permit would not be required for this work, and Chief Building Inspector says it will require a building permit. So, other than that, we're then ready with our staff report when you are.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to add?
I would like to add a couple of things. At the last meeting we were at, we had 2 discussions. So the back porch I think we have resolved, but I'm happy to answer any questions since we didn't change anything design-wise. The front square columns versus the round, I did some research and looked into, this is a mixed Queen Victorian colonial revival home, and it had, if you all that were there recall, 2 different forms of round poles as well as square poles because we could not get the round poles. The reason I was texting, and I apologize for that, is I'm literally on the phone to yet the very last person who might be able to make a round pole. He's not sure. He might have to mold it out of something other than wood. Because the house is partially Queen Anne revival, we actually prefer the square. The balustrade is revival underneath. That's why it's square. We have preserved the balustrade and the fretwork. So we intend to put those back up, but we're trying to make this house even and all preserved in one effective way.
Okay.
It's common, evidently, to build the revival with the Queen Anne in 1903. Super common. But I don't think we can get the round poles. There is a chance, thank you, Mr. Parsons, that's who I'm talking to, they might be able to do the poles, but they might not be able to do them on wood and turn them. They might have to mold them. So I want to say, honestly, there is a chance I can get a round pole. I'll know tonight.
Yep.
I prefer the square as do my parents. That picture Matt showed you was showing that we would router the sides so they wouldn't be so sharp, so they would be softer.
Okay, so your proposal is square poles.
We want to keep, we want the square poles.
Okay, we'll deal with that.
Chamfering.
Yes.
She's talking about chamfering right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's chamfering. Okay, that
Yeah.
sounds, this is not my thing. So the poles are one thing. The other thing I want to briefly speak to is the porch. I have sources, because that's what professors do, and handouts, but I know I can't give them to you, so I'll just keep them. But I looked up, I mentioned at the last meeting, the tongue and groove rots, and that is a problem because we sit right on a floodplain. As many of you may know, that house floods. That's why it's such a mess. You don't use tongue and groove in that environment. It's not recommended. I have sources if anybody wants to see that. It's common to use plank flooring.
Yeah.
So I would like to use the plank flooring so that it can dry between, so we will not constantly be ripping up pieces of the floor. That's why it's half tongue and groove, half not, because people would come out and stick these planks in there. I am asking to make them wider. It was common with Victorian homes for them to be between 2 1/4 and 6 inches. I have to make a correction. I was incorrect in my application. It is 5 inches, those plank widths, not 4. And they are 1 inch thick.
Okay.
So that's it in a nutshell. We would like to go to the square pole so we don't keep having to try to replace.
Okay.
I have a question. So
Sure.
she's not allowed to hand out information?
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
thought since I didn't send it, I'm sorry, I had a bad work day today. I didn't have time to email
Yeah.
anything. All right. Here is my Y tongue and groove. Hang on. I have 20 just in case. So in case anybody else wants to see them. And this is just an overview of the architectural thing if you want to see that. Oh, wait, hang on. Yeah, the sources are on the back. This is just one page. They're all the same one page. The sources are on the back. One is HUD and some other architectural things. One might even be Better Homes and Garden, and I know that's not.
Okay.
But I did talk to some other people, including a family member who's an architect, and they don't advise tongue and groove in flood zones. I don't think that's an unusual.
Yep.
But I wanted to make sure I was right when I asserted that.
And Mr. Chair, just for the record, the applicant has provided a document that is titled "Why Tongue and Groove Porch Flooring is Problematic in Flood-Prone Areas."
Yeah.
It is a 2-page document, 1.5-page document, and I believe it is a document that was authored by the applicant.
It was authored by me and AI.
Okay.
It is a combination effort.
And you may incorporate this document into the record. You can just note that for the record. You don't have to vote.
Okay. We'll note for the record, we are incorporating the applicant's description of the issues involving tongue and groove in flood areas. Okay. Anything else you'd like to?
No, I don't think so. I have another one that just talks about what I already said.
Okay.
I think everybody knows it's a mixed
Yep.
style home, and we want to make it better. It is our
Yep.
goal now to update this house and get it back in good condition, and we
Okay.
need to do that.
Okay. Are there any proponents or opponents of the project who have received notification from the city and have status that wish to speak? Hearing none. Okay. We're ready for your recommendation.
Okay.
Did we
Or
include
there-
any
Are there any
unnotified?
opponents or proponents who didn't receive notification who are concerned with the project who want to speak? Okay. All right.
All right, so this is our staff report for the project at 507 East Front Street. The applicant is Christine Russell, and the historic property name is John G. Dunn House, built circa 1903. It is a contributing structure, and the National Register inventory description from 2003 describes it as 2.5 stories, 3 bays wide, a wraparound porch, cross gable roof, and pedimented gables. The sandbed description from 1988, the relevant portion includes, quote, a late example of the long influence of the Queen Anne style. The 2-story John G. Dunn House is distinguished by its lively cross-gabled roof line and projecting 3-sided front bay. A 1-story porch supported by turn posts wraps around the 3 sides of the central bay and shelters the entrance doors at either side. It continues on later to say the house was built circa 1903 for John G. Dunn, the proprietor of a large dry goods and clothing store, and during the 1920s an officer of both the New Bern Building and Loan Association and the New Bern Morris Plan Company. Unquote. So for 507 East Front Street, the project is to include rehabilitation of the porch in the primary and secondary AVC and the stoop and steps in the secondary AVC. So staff submits the following historic district design standards, the guidelines that may be appropriate to this application. For design principles, 3.1.1. For modifications, 3.2.1, 2, and 3. For entrances, 4.4.1, 2, and 4. For wood, 5.2.1 and 2. For paint, 5.4.1, 2, 3, and 4. And for statements of fact based on the information contained in the application are, 1, the structure is a contributing resource in the tight weave development pattern. 2, the project is modifications to a contributing structure in the primary and secondary AVCs. 3, the proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the historic district design standards. 4, the zoning administrator and chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. And 5, the application is not incongruous with the guidelines. The HPC may want to consider the following conditions. The revised plans according to the changes agreed upon at the hearing shall be submitted by the applicant to the HPC staff for approval according to the guidelines and prior to the final inspection by the Building Inspections Division. It's the end of our staff report.
Questions? Discussion?
So
Some of you guys have been doing this a lot longer than I have. What's your take on flood-prone areas, tongue and groove versus plank?
A lot of consideration.
Looking at the guidelines, I didn't see anything that differentiated between flood-prone areas and not when it came to materials.
Not a consideration in terms of the guidelines or the reality?
Either, yeah.
Either. You don't think it's a particular hazard?
Some floods are 2 inches, some floods are 4 feet. You want a porch?
Yeah.
If you want a wood deck, it falls between 2 inches and 4 feet, you get flooded.
Yeah.
So it's, conversely, you could, not necessarily in the historical district, but theoretically have other materials for porches that are more flood resistant, but that's not necessarily a characteristic of the historic districts.
Does the guideline suggest or mandate tongue and groove? If it does,
Not specifically, but it doesn't mandate or suggest a lot of things that are obvious when you look at buildings up the street, down the street, and across the street.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions?
So I guess come back to our columns. I applaud you for trying to source a round column or a complex turning as we have here. And I don't have it's getting ready to say I don't have a strong opinion. I don't think the guidelines have a strong opinion about whether it be a turn column or a square column on a structure of this era. But what gives me some anxiety is our upper rail work usually goes with turn columns. And as evidence of that, I'd suggest on page 4-4, we've got a picture in the guidelines where you can see the turn column and the lower railing or balustrade and the upper railing. All the examples you brought in tonight of square columns, none of them have the upper rail in them.
So I'm not sure I understand, and I apologize because, again,
that's
not
okay.
my area of expertise. But, so the concern you have is what's right at the top of the column?
Yeah.
Well, the detail work, the ornamental work, that goes with the turn column.
I believe she
in
called
my
that
opinion.
the fret work.
Yeah.
I called it the spindle work.
And, but yeah, the upper rail.
So the top part of the...
In between columns.
We have it in the image on the screens at the bottom.
Okay, so that original, the top work is the original work that's been
I understand.
forever,
See,
right?
that's part of the problem that we're kind of faced with up here, as I see it. So, on the surface, it seems like an easy switch.
Right.
Yeah, round column, square column, not sure it matters. But what does give me some anxiety is having the square column, square column with the additional ornamental work at the
With
top.
the rounded at the
So to
top.
take it further, we could all just here tonight say, well, we'll leave that out, except as you say, it's original to the house.
Right.
So I don't think, you see the conundrum.
And I will complicate this by saying that it does not show in the sandbag picture.
In the what?
So it's not original.
Oh, well, which may be true.
It's not in the sandbag picture. So
The 1988 Sandbeck or an earlier one?
Earlier than 88, probably 80.
I'm not aware that there was more than one.
Oh.
So Richard, you're saying that the picture that Peter has in the book does not show the turn columns?
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, it shows the turn columns, but it does not show the spindle work at the top.
Gotcha.
And was your plan to put in the fretwork at the top?
We had intended to put it back, but honestly, we were doing that because we thought that was original to the house and it was something that was significant to the community we wanted to keep there.
Yeah.
As a design element, I'm in complete agreement, as is my family, that we have two different kinds of, we have the colonial revival balustrade on the bottom, and then we have the more Queen Anne turn.
Yeah.
We could leave it off, And I don't think anybody's bothered by that, or we could adjust it to colonial revival to
Well, then
match.
I've seen a different picture without it. I've seen a different earlier.
Well,
There have been many changes to this.
It does show in the sandbag picture, but I have seen a picture in design review. There was a picture that we saw without the,
Without,
yeah.
Mr. Chair, I think Mr. Shelley has a copy of the sandbag book that's being discussed at the
Yeah.
moment, and he has opened the sandbag book to page 306, specifically the entry on the John G. Dunn House located at 507 East Front Street, 1903. I think he is going to provide at least you an opportunity to see that photograph for your context.
And
Can you show it to the applicant?
So I have to ask
Can you show it to the
Mr.
applicant?
Shelley,
I can wait.
there was a picture that we saw.
Does not have the fretwork in it.
My parents bought it 35 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
I do not know what happened in that 35
Well,
years or before.
And so while they're studying, the one other point that I wanted to bring out is I think you provided some additional pictures tonight that showed the construction underneath the porch decking and things like that. We may have seen those during design review, but they appear to be new to me anyway.
They were always there.
That's okay.
We
Yeah.
are literally replacing what was,
Yeah,
that part's
that's not where
but
I'm going.
yeah, I'm with you, I don't know where that
Not
came
where
from.
I'm going. I'm saying
Okay.
the whole porch has been rebuilt.
Right, many
Okay,
times.
and those were modern materials beneath the deck boards, and so there's a good chance we've got a combination of things that never were intended to go together just
Right.
because someone was being a good steward and, salvaging things that they liked or that they thought looked nice.
Right. I will say, if it's helpful, this house has been totally
Yeah.
remodeled and done,
Okay.
and 2, maybe 3 times, because hurricanes have taken it down with
So-
complete flooding of the ground floor.
Sure. So I'm satisfied based on the picture that maybe that detailing at the top between columns is not original, in which case, if you want square columns and we can agree to leave it out,
Happy to do it.
I'd be a happy camper
So-
and we can
we
not
say that's-
relive this conversation.
can we agree that your proposal is square columns without the fretwork at the top?
Absolutely. I am happy to do that. We
Okay.
preferred that anyway. So
Okay.
I agree with you completely on that.
Okay, so that's, would you amend the
So
the
it's my
proposal?
understanding the applicant is amending her application to
Yeah.
remove the fretwork at the top of the structure
Yeah.
and to move forward with square columns.
That's correct. That's
Can we
correct.
say chamfered squared columns?
Exactly. Thank you for that
Yeah.
correction,
Yes.
Mr. Morrison.
Okay,
That is
And everybody understands that we're now dealing with a modified application.
yep.
So I noticed on those square columns that you had already constructed, it looks like the top of the column, it's pretty chunky there. And I thought maybe that was because of the fretwork that you were trying to create because one of the things that someone brought up at the last meeting was kind of the balance. It looks like it's a big chunk of wood at the top of that column. If it's not needed,
We can remove it.
can you do something? And if you looked at some of your photos of different columns, there is some ornamentation. There's some different bands in some of those that give it a little bit more character, if you will, a little bit more ornamentation. If you look at some of those photos, what do you guys think about trying to emulate some of those neighboring houses with the square ones?
What size column is that? Is that a 4x4 or 6x6?
That's
Like
the
6 by 6.
6 by
I
6.
think it's 6 by 6 because they are a little bigger than the porch.
Okay,
It is 6 by 6. In fact, I remember asking him that question. It is 6 by 6. I have a note right here.
so let me summarize a minute. Your original application then has those extenders on the pole at the top, and it's been suggested that they might not be appropriate. Is that
Can
where everyone
Mr.
is?
Shelley show us the picture?
Yep.
And you are correct. It was because of the fretwork that we were trying to balance that ornate fretwork on the top,
Yeah.
but we can remove that.
That's the picture,
Yeah.
and
Now, at the bottom, we also have this.
that's the proposal. It's more ornate than that.
Well, it doesn't
Yeah.
have that big
Yeah.
chunk of wood. It has
Yeah.
something that has a little bit more of
Yeah.
a style.
Well, for the purposes a motion, and I need to know exactly what it is you're going to do here.
Okay.
Is it just going to be the square post, no adornments, top and bottom?
Square post, no adornment on the top. I would prefer to have the slight molding on the bottom, but I'm willing and open to removing that if anybody's troubled by that. That's an aesthetic thing for me. But yes, square, let's say for purposes of the motion, remove the molding completely, remove the fretwork, and we will have straight square posts that are is it chamfered?
Yeah.
Yes, with the original railing.
Yeah.
We're just repairing the wood on the original railing.
Okay. Okay, and that's another amendment to the proposal. That's where we are at the moment. Are there any other questions?
Well, let's go to PDF page 92. Matt.
Okay, yep, this one here. This one?
Yeah, the floor decking.
Yeah.
So, aside from the cross-section of the material that's been talked about earlier, you got your decking running in the wrong direction on that side of the house.
Okay.
In other words, if we were to, again, take into consideration decking on other houses in the district, it's going to run perpendicular to the exterior wall because the porch slopes down.
Okay.
And so that's so the water can run off. Right,
Okay.
where here, water's just going to run between the cracks.
And are
The
you
joints.
suggesting that it be mitered where the,
Correct.
At the corner.
And then it'd be mitered at some point to turn the corner.
Yeah, they haven't finished that part of it. In terms of turning it perpendicular, original porch wasn't that way, but I mean, I don't guess there's any reason not to do that. I get what you're saying,
Well-
so the water runs to the right of the house, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that just wasn't how it was done, but I don't have
Well,
any,
it may not have been, I don't know, but we were looking at a picture of the front of the house earlier,
yeah.
when we were examining the columns, and it also had the decking
Right.
in the view.
It was a lot of chopped up decking, patched in,
I
over the
understand.
years. Every time one piece rotted out, we patched some more pieces.
Yeah.
And that is a consistent challenge for us with lots of,
Whoop, go back, Matt.
but I can tell the contractor to do it perpendicular.
Number is 77, I think.
Yeah, there-
And so we know from, and this isn't, we're around the corner where I'm talking
Right.
about, but you can see these deck boards run perpendicular
Yep.
to the outside wall. And you can also kind of see their tongue and groove
Yes,
from before.
yes.
Okay, and that's another amendment to the proposal, and you're in agreement with doing that?
Absolutely.
What exactly are we agreeing to?
Yeah, say, what was that?
The amendment is to have the deck boards running perpendicular to the house, mitered at the corners.
Yes. That is correct, and I'm in agreement.
And are we resolved that it's not tongue and groove,
That would be the right thing to do.
to do tongue and groove?
Right. Okay, you would rather not do the tongue and groove?
I feel very strongly that, A, it is not uncommon for this type of house to, not all of them had tongue and groove, so we're not in violation of that, and not every house in town has tongue and groove. And we have had consistent, I realize that, yes, if you have a flood, you know, you have these problems, but because of the unique nature of where our house is, it is literally right in the worst possible place for water to come up. Every rainstorm, we're submerged. I spend half of the time, we've already repaired it in the 2 years I've been here, 3 times because of rot, because it wets, and it's clear that that is going to dissolve more frequently, and we're going to have to constantly patch. And so, yes, I really would like to be allowed to do the plank and run it perpendicular with the mitered edges, because it is a consistent repair problem. And I think that it's consistent with other homes in the neighborhood that don't. Not everybody has it. So, yes, I feel pretty resolved on that. I do want to do that.
Okay, and that's your proposal. We'll
Yes.
deal with it when we vote.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
that's yours, and you have an opposing opinion, and maybe there are others.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, but both, well, particularly in terms of the width of the board. Yeah, it's just too wide.
I'd be open to making the width of the board narrower.
What would you prefer? 4?
Well, I think, as we discussed in design review, we're looking for something in the 2 to 4 inch range, 4 at the most.
Would you propose 4?
4 inches would be absolutely fine. I don't have a problem with switching out for 4 inches. I just really am concerned about the tongue and groove rot. This has been ongoing forever.
Okay. Where were we in the process here?
Sorry.
So,
Okay, you presented your, so we're going to deal with an amended proposal. We all know the columns now. There aren't adornments at the top of the bottom. There's no fretwork. The porch deck would be vertical to the house, mitered at the corners. The boards will be 4 inches. And you would prefer non-tongue and groove, so that's the proposal that's on the floor.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The decking is perpendicular.
Decking is
perpendicular to the building.
To the building, right, yeah. Okay. Is there any further discussion? Okay.
So that's all about the front. Are there any, the back, I guess because that's what you're proposing is?
That's exactly what it was
It's
when it
replacing
brought
the
it
kind
out.
on the back. Yeah.
And I probably could have hunted for some more pictures. I apologize for that. I was under the impression, since we were doing the same exact thing, that's what I emailed Matt about, that from our conversation, we didn't need to have a,
Thanks.
I didn't change anything. I literally kept the caps. The molded caps are exactly the same. We're just going to repaint them.
And Matt, you've verified that it is a direct replacement in kind for that back porch?
I cannot verify that
Okay.
because I have no brief.
Would it help if I hunt down a picture of that back? I can ask my brother-in-law for a picture of when they repaired it the last time it fell down.
I'm
This is what you're concerned.
I was just, if we needed to include it as part of the application.
But it is part of the application, yeah.
Yeah, I thought we had withdrawn it, and I
Yeah.
apologize for that. I thought we had said that if it was an exact replacement, we could withdraw it, so.
Yeah, we had various conversations back and forth about this, and in the end, I left it in the application. It was not clear to me, but also, in the event it's a replacement, an exact replica of the previous one, it would simply just be a replacement in kind, no matter what. If it is not an exact replica for whatever reason, and you, however, think this is acceptable, then she would already have an approval for this, or anyway. So it was probably better just to have her go through this as if the way you see it there. If you think that's okay, or if there needs to be some adjustments, like we did with the porch or anything.
But let's deal with it as proposed as it is. Are there any other final questions? Okay.
Well, let me make sure I got this.
I'm going to recap.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Yeah. The final design, which I'm going to ask for a motion on, would be that the posts on the front deck are square, that there are no enlarged elements on the top and bottom, that there's no fretwork across the top, and that the deck boards on the front run perpendicular to the structure, mitered at the corners, so it's perpendicular all the way around.
Right.
I believe that,
And the columns
4
are
inches.
chamfered.
and the which?
And chamfered columns.
Chamfered.
Yeah.
Chamfered, yeah.
We had already intended
Yeah,
that,
we
the
agreed
contractors
on
on that.
Yeah.
And the
Okay.
depth, the width of the boards.
4 inches.
4-inch boards, that's
Yep.
a good point, yeah, 4-inch
Yep,
boards.
I've got
yeah.
that.
So Mr. Chairman.
And the proposal is non-tongue and groove, yeah.
A question, would it be appropriate to, as a condition, since we've got some amendments, we seem to be in agreement with what these amendments are, a condition would be the applicant would provide updated documentation on the amendments to the HBC administrator so that we have complete documented record of what.
He says yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You have them already, or you've
Well, I
made them?
don't. So we would need to see,
When you see a revised drawing incorporating the changes we've talked about.
right,
Okay.
drawings
That'd
and
be a condition.
photographs. For example, they could remove the capital and the base,
Yeah.
take a picture, and this is
Yeah.
what we want to do.
So the condition we'll ask for is a revised drawing that
Or
details the
photographs.
changes we've
Right,
agreed
some
on.
documentation.
Documentation.
Yeah,
Okay.
because
my
my
husband.
concern is that sometimes it
Yeah.
takes 6 months, a year to get to these things, and we lose track of, okay, what
Yeah.
is it that we actually approve? And
Yeah.
if it's documented, then we've got it.
Could be confusing based on this
Yes.
dialogue.
So is the amendment to have a square post, not the wood that's on there now, but the top of the square post go directly as square, or are there other ornamentation kind of, which is more typical at the top of the column?
The pictures I saw didn't show it, but the amendment, the proposal is that there be no change in the width at the top and the bottom.
And that's not so much change in width, but
Adornments.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if, a lot of times when that column comes
Yeah.
up, there's like almost like a
Yeah.
larger plate that sits on
Yeah.
with some molding that's around there to kind of tie it all together.
Yeah, and she's not proposing that, and that's what we'll vote on.
Now, looking at the other houses, they typically have some router
Yes.
design elements.
Some kind of plate that they sit on, and something that kind of ties
You're
it.
talking about a thinner plate,
Yes.
top and bottom.
Like on the image on your screen.
Yeah,
Like
like
on
this
the what?
one.
Yes.
Yeah,
See, because I was looking at fretwork at the top,
correct.
Yeah.
trying not
so
to
it wouldn't
add,
have
I
it.
didn't
Yeah.
see any ornamentation that would work. Now that I have a blank one,
Okay,
I can,
you willing to put then a plate, it would probably be an inch and a half plate, square,
Yes.
around the top and bottom?
yes.
I think
I can
there
send
actually
drawings.
is one in the photograph of what's on the house now. I think there is actually.
There is a plate, but then there's
There's
a
another
big
piece.
chunk of
and that's
treated
what
wood.
I-
That's got to, but
Yeah.
maybe some kind of a molding that goes between the vertical column and the horizontal plate that's there. Something
Like this
that-
example right here? Oh, I'm sorry, just on the left. Sorry, Matt. Where it has the top square piece of thin molding and then another one, is that what you're talking about? Like that?
Yeah, just the top piece, not the secondary one.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we have one on there now. We could take off that large molding and just leave the one thin there, or do something. I'll get a drawing. I can do
Yeah,
Matthew.
that.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I see. It's angled up a little bit, right? It's got a little arch. Is that what?
Well, I think it's actually a piece of cove molding.
Yeah, I think it's a piece of molding that kind of ties.
Okay. I hate
At
to
the
say,
very-
you want to amend it again, because
at
it's
the
the
base
most
of the-
amended front porch ever. But I like that, and I can do that.
okay.
So, Mr. Chair, just for purposes of the
Somebody just
record,
sends me a picture.
Mr. Shelley has a picture of the top of a column that he's showing to everyone.
Yeah.
That's an electronic photograph that we'll need to incorporate into the record that shows some detailing at the top of the column.
Molly?
Molly.
Very good, thank you.
Wouldn't the base have to be similar, a little taller proportion like that?
I can send it to you, Matt, and then you can.
All right? Yes.
And then you send me that.
I will forward it to her.
Okay, and is that the picture you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
You would do it that way, that's
We
the
will
proposal.
do that exact thing at the top.
Yep.
I believe Greg may have a question.
My question was, usually it's mirrored at the bottom and a bigger scale, a little taller scale than that. Whatever you do at the top, you do at
They
the
would
bottom.
mirror each other, top and bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The bottom is sometimes bigger.
yeah.
I would only add that we have the railing, which is quite low. We have a waiver for that 23-inch railing. And I don't know if we put that there, that it would conflict because of the straight, more colonial
It's
rail you
different.
have, and then it's hooked to that. I don't object to it, but that's just my only.
It's just a foot. Think of it as a
Okay.
foot. It's like a base.
All right. I hate to say, do you want, I think it looks fine, and I'm happy to do that if the committee feels that would be
It's
better
large
to
as well.
balance.
But I'm talking really about the molding.
Yeah. So, does everyone understand, or we recap one more, what the proposal is and thus the motion? square poles,
Camphor.
the molding at the top and bottom of the square poles, decking 4 inches,
No fretwork.
no fretwork, decking 4 inches, runs perpendicular to the structure, mitered at the corners.
Yes.
I think that captures it all.
I do have a question. We have to agree on, or not agree on, tongue and groove or plank. Because
I'm sorry.
we have to agree if it's okay for her to do plank or tongue and groove. I think that's the only thing.
The proposal is not having tongue and groove. We'll vote on that.
I think that's the only thing that might be on the line.
Well, I'm suggesting, since it isn't required, it's suggested that we vote on it, and it would be the opinion of this board by vote whether that works or not.
Mr. Chair, getting what you're talking about, Gregory, is, so are you saying that, there are elements of this which could pass, there are elements that might not, like the tongue and groove?
But that could be a second vote.
So instead of maybe doing all in one, is that what you're saying?
So allow me to be helpful, Mr. Chair. So the application before you consists of a lot of moving parts, okay? And I think the applicant has been very malleable this evening in modifying the application consistent with some of the discussion that you all have had. I think she has reached the limit of her malleability as it comes to the tongue and groove.
Yeah.
So the application that you have before you is the modified application to include the tongue and groove. So that's what it is. So what you are voting on is that application.
To not include the tongue and groove.
To not include the tongue and groove. If you find that the application is incongruous with the guidelines, and you can state a specific basis where it fails to meet the guidelines, then it would be appropriate to deny the application. If you review the application as it's been amended, and you cannot articulate a basis by which it fails to satisfy the guidelines, then you must approve the application.
Yeah. Okay. Everybody understand the ground rules? I'm ready for a motion. And if you would include the various details of it, that would make it clearer.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move to find the application for 507, let me double check, East Front Street, to be not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinance, Section 15411 to 15429, and New Bern's Historic District guidelines based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. Design Principles 3.1.1, Modifications 3.2.1, 2, and 3, Entrances 4.4.1, 2, and 4, Wood 5.2.1 and 2, Paint 5.4.1, 2, 3, and 4. Findings of fact: the structure is a contributing resource in the tight weave development pattern. The project is a modification to a contributing structure in the primary and secondary AVCs. The proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the Historic District guidelines. The zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. The application is not incongruous with the guidelines. I do submit the following amendments to the original application. The application will have square chamfered poles with decorative molding top and bottom. The deck wood will be replaced with 4-inch decking perpendicular to the house and mitered at the corners, and there'll be no fret decorative moldings.
Okay, do I have a second for that motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded, we approve the motion as stated. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. Okay. Motion carries. Motion to approve or issue the COA.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, we approve the COA or issue the COA. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Issue the COA.
Did you find
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. and thank you for being patient.
Thank you for being patient with us, too.
But you know, I mean, any detail like that, it's a matter of looking all around. Oh, yeah.
Can I have who made the motion and second for the COA, please?
I made the
Issue
motion.
or,
Richard made the motion, and who made the second?
I did.
TE. And it was unanimous?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
221 Middle.
Okay. So this is the application for 221 Middle Street. The owner is Andy Schiff, and the applicant's name is Amy Perry. See attached documents for all the above information required, and they've provided the check mark items. And Ms. Perry is here to represent the owner as she signed the document and also provided general information. Let's see, where are we?
I have a
Sorry.
hard copy of that.
I must have it in here. Sorry. Okay. I apparently did not put in your owner's authorization.
Here's a hard copy.
Okay.
Records.
There is a copy in-house, in the house. All right, so then this is the general overview and description of the work, including for the exterior facades, the windows, the guidelines are referenced here, modifications. These are all the guidelines that they're presenting. Provided a detailed description of the materials, including a hydraulic bifold door system. What is the material of that, wood or metal or otherwise?
Oh, this looks like
It says metal.
Metal, thank you. Okay. And planter box, I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, that was
from before.
yeah, so that's incorrect, I'm sorry, on the application. So that was from the
The previous.
one previous one, so
Yeah.
there is no planter box. There's not a hydraulic bifold door system, so those should be eliminated, as well
Okay.
as the trellis, that is also eliminated.
Okay, hold it. I'm taking some notes. No planter box.
So
There is still a door, though. There's still a foldable door.
Correct, it is
Yes.
a bifolding door system, so versus the upward lift of the hydraulic
it's a
door,
side,
it's
yeah.
a manual side bifold.
Okay.
Correct.
So, and then these are the photos they provided the last time and this time. Show you the existing condition for the front facade, some close-ups of the upper left corner of the facade and the canopy roof, closer up of the upper left window and its conditions. Then inside the canopy roof, or inside the building behind the canopy roof, you can see there had been at some point a transom windows, I guess you could call them, across the facade. And then this is an example of the neighboring condition that they're emulating. There we go. Again, as we all know that one. And then they provided a new photograph of the exterior of the rear of the building, where the additional item here is adding a walk-in freezer on the back side of the building, essentially where the double doors are. And then cutting in a new door where it looks like there's a door there, but that's actually a door leaning against the wall. So here's the proposed current elevation of the facade. The canopy here is the white striping here, and then below that is the current storefront, which has the angled, in plan view down here you see it, the left side is angled towards the doors, and it also has the small bulkhead at the bottom as well. So then, as opposed to that, there is this new elevation proposed. And, so all of that storefront's been removed and being replaced. And there's another plan view down here. So instead of the door on the right, the door will be on the left. And the front facade will be parallel with the street, not angled. And then on the right-hand side, you see these dashed lines here. This is where all those doors would stack all the way on the right-hand side when opened. These windows, actually, not doors. Then above that, there's a thin white stripe here. That is a new metal-framed awning with translucent roof panels. You just see the front edge of it with some little dash lines above that. Could represent the muntins between the various panels of glass. And then the transom windows have been, replicated again, maybe smaller and maybe different proportions to each, but in this case, restored in that manner. And then above that, a new sign band across the top. All of this then around the perimeter and throughout is all woodwork, with the exception of that metal and glass awning. And previously there had been a sign at the top that is now no longer there. So this is a section through that awning and the transoms, and then the signboard above that, or sign band, they call it. In the background here, the horizontal striping is actually a V-groove wood paneling that's being painted. And then behind this, on the right side, shows the section through those folding windows that will slide open at the end. With then the bulkhead at the bottom is wood paneling on the outside. All right. Then on the rear, this is the current rear elevation. The double doors there in the middle. And the new rear elevation will have then the walk-in freezer in front of that with a painted wood fence around that as a screen. And then the new door on the right-hand side. Oops. So that's a section through the walk-in freezer. So the walk-in freezer is going to butt up against the building at the top and the sides as much as possible. Have a new concrete footing, floor, and footing edges. And then the wood screen is set off from that a couple of feet. And it all fits underneath that existing roofing that's there. And here's a plan view. No, I can't. Showing the opening that's currently the double doorway, and they will be modifying that doorway to facilitate the door for the walk-in freezer or cooler. Let's see what else. There's a new ramp, I guess, going in here as well. Is that right? Next to the cooler.
Correct.
To get up
So
to
at the door, where we're putting in that new door to create an even accessible landing, a new concrete, and then there'll have to be some manner of sloping down to the existing asphalt.
Yeah, for delivery dollies and stuff.
Correct. And egress.
So this is a rendering of the front facade. So you have an idea what that would look like. And remember, the doorway here on the left is pushed back farther than the windows here on the right. And we have a small awning hanging out over top of all of that. All right. And then a lot of detailed information about doors, the bifold doors, or I'm sorry, I call them doors, but they're windows, sorry.
It is actually a door system, but it's serving the purpose of windows.
Thank you for trying to rescue me on that one. But one of the interesting pieces is that the muntins are indeed the three-piece muntins that are required for double glazing. To give you some idea here on the right how that kind of works, but it'll all go to one side, not both sides. You can see also here at the top an image how that entire space can be opened up and stack on one side. So, and they're showing, I guess, colors and materials for the wood. So, and that these are actual wood pieces. We also provided some examples of what the street looked like back in the early 1900s, I would say, or late 1800s. And the building under question is here on the left. Is that it?
Well, it's, I guess, before this building was actually in place.
Because this is the
Hotel Albert.
That is the location where it would be, though.
yeah.
Correct,
So
right.
that the current building is not there yet. And then some examples of other awnings. These are projecting out quite a bit farther than the ones proposed. They also have a bit more decorative filigrees or whatever in the metal members, and the roof is a bit steeper. So, but just as inspiration for the design for that. Our next item is our zoning and inspections report. The zoning administrator has indicated that a departmental site plan review will be required and a sign permit will also be required. The chief building inspector indicates that it will require a building permit. Building and mechanical permits are required. And so then we're ready with our staff report when you are.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to add?
I don't think so.
Okay. Are there proponents or opponents of this proposal that are here that received notice from the city who would like to speak?
I did not swear in.
Did you wish to, Mark? Okay.
Yes, Mark Burns.
Yeah.
You received a notice, Blue Magnolia.
Yep.
And my wife Ellen. My name is Mark Brents.
Mr. Chair, if we could have him repeat all of that information into the microphone.
I'm sorry?
If we could have him repeat after he swears in, we need him to
after he swears in, you
introduce
can
himself.
repeat all that. You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
My name is Mark Prince. I'm an owner of Blue Magnolia here with my wife Ellen, and we live next door, or I live next door. She has Blue Magnolia, which is right adjacent to the proposed building. We've been in for quite a while now. They're great neighbors. I don't think we're going to have any issues with them. Every time there's been a little hiccup here or there, everything's worked out. So I'm happy that they're coming in. I'm happy that they're doing what they're doing. Okay. We do have one issue that we talked about, and we've come to an agreement. They're going to actually check on that. We've got some possible structural issues with the awning that we want to make sure that's addressed. And it doesn't look like we're going to have any problems on that, and we'll talk a little bit.
You're talking
later
about
on that.
the existing awning.
Yes. Well, we just want to make sure that there's not going to be any foundation do the wall, the structure, how it's going out. They've got those long securing rods that run into the building that are attached via large metal pieces that go into the brick. We're just concerned about that on that one end. Other than that, I really like everything that they're doing. In the back, I think when they build the walk-in area, there's actually a drain over there on that side. I would just be a little concerned about water draining into that off from the runoff from the buildings, because I think that's the only low spot. And if I'm correct, during the last flood during Florence, they had issues in that. So I just don't know. That's just, I don't know. That's the architect and the engineers.
Okay.
But I really like what they're doing.
Okay, thank you. John, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
My name is John Watson. My wife, Michael Lee, and I live on the other side of the property, excuse me, of the restaurant that's there now. And Ashley has been an exceptional neighbor. I have to ditto everything that he said. I'm looking forward to that big-ass awning coming down. It's over that other building.
Yeah.
So it'll be nothing but just another attraction on Middle Street.
Super, thank you.
Can you tell us what the address is where you live?
It's,
What's the address for where you live?
217 Middle.
Thank you.
Right next door, 6 inches away.
So you live
Share
above,
wall.
you live above
Yeah.
Cypress Hall?
no, next one over.
Oh, okay. So two buildings over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cypress Hall is our neighbor.
Okay, is there anyone who was not notified by the city but has issues with or would like to present any information in relationship to this project? Seeing none, okay. I think we're ready for your recommendation.
Okay. All right, this is the staff report for 221 Middle Street. The applicant is Andy Schiff and Amy Perry. And the historic property name is the Scott Building, circa 1885. It was remodeled and enlarged circa 1920 to 23. So I guess that image was from before 1885. 221 Middle Street, the project is to include a facade renovation and new sign in the primary AVC, plus adding a walk-in cooler in the tertiary AVC. The National Register inventory description from 2003 says it's 2 stories, it's brick, corner pilaster defining two 3-bay sections, and a corbelled cornice. The Sandbeck description from 1988 is that during the early 1980s,
That can't be.
1880s, must be, Solomon H. Scott established a livery stable in a commercial structure which had stood on this site since the 1880s. So that must be early 1900s then. This early structure was extensively remodeled circa 1923 when the present pressed brick facade was added. Between the 1920s and the 1940s, the Scott family leased the building to Trent Motor Company and the Carolina Rubber Supply Company. Since 1943, it has been occupied by Scott and Company, a refrigeration and propane business operated by the descendants of S.H. Scott. Both buildings, 221 and 223 Middle Street, display conservative, nearly identical facades of pressed brick, with detailing consisting of corner pilasters, plain corbelled cornices, and stone lintels above the window openings. So staff submits the following historic district guidelines as appropriate to this application. For utilities, 2.3.1. For fencing, 2.5.1 and 3. For signage, 2.8.1, 2, and 4. For design principles, 3.1.1, 2, 4, and 5. For modifications, 3.2.1, 2, 4, and 5. For walls, trim, and ornamentation, 4.2.1, 2, 3, and 4. Windows, doors, and openings, 4.3.1. Entrances, 4.4.1 and 3. Masonry, 5.1.1, 2, and 4. Wood, 5.2.1, 2, and 2. For metals, 5.3.1, 2, 3, and 4. For paint, 5.4.2 and 3. And for masonry maintenance, 6.1.1, 2, 3, and 4. Wood maintenance, 6.1.5, 6, and 7. Statements of reason based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are: 1, the project is a facade renovation and equipment installation within the dense fabric development pattern. 2, the proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. 3, the zoning administrator and chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. And 4, the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. The HPC may want to consider the following conditions. 1, revised plans according to the changes agreed upon at the hearing shall be submitted by the applicant to the HPC staff for approval according to the guidelines and prior to the final inspection by the Building Inspections Division. That concludes our staff report.
Okay. Discussion, questions?
I do have kind of a follow-up. During the workshop, there was some discussion about the awning and whether that was going to, what kind of material that was going to be. Where are we sitting right now? Are you looking at
glass?
You're looking at glass?
Glass, yeah.
Okay.
So not polycarbonate?
Correct.
Okay. So that's a modification to what we have?
Correct.
Correct. Okay. And just out of abundance of caution, just because the wood, it's labeled wood bifold doors on their cut sheet. And reading through that, they distinguish between the frame and the panel. And they say the frame is wood on both sides. When they describe the panel, they say it's clear pine to the interior and extruded aluminum to the exterior.
Correct. They are aluminum-clad wood windows. So on the exterior, they are clad with an aluminum finish. And on the interior, it would be an exposed wood finish.
Okay. So it's not wood. Okay.
Do you have a question? No. Okay. Questions? No.
Nope.
No. Questions, concerns over here? No.
Yeah, and I guess in background of that is they already had changed the facade of that in a recent time. So
Yeah.
just was asking because the description is deceptive to say it's a wood door.
It is on the section there that's showing it. It's listed as an aluminum-clad.
Yeah, I know. Just the two descriptions. You have to call it wood.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I move to find the application for the project at 221 Middle Street to be not incongruous with the New Bern's Code of Ordinances, sections 15.411 through 15.429, and New Bern's Historic District standards based on the following specific guidelines and finding of fact. Sections 2.3.1, fences and walls, 2.5.1, 2.5.3, signage 2.8.1, 2.8.2, and 2.8.4, design principles 3.1.1, 3.1.2, 3.1.4, and 3.1.5. Modifications 3.2.1, 3.2.2, 3.2.4, and 3.2.5. Walls, trims, and ornamentation 4.2.1, 4.2.2, 4.2.3, and 4.2.4. Windows 4.3.1. Entrances 4.4.1 and 4.4.3, masonry 5.1.1, 5.1.2, and 5.1.4, wood 5.2.1 and 5.2.2, metals 5.3.1, 5.3.2, 5.3.3, and 5.3.4, paint 5.4.2 and 5.4.3, masonry maintenance 6.1.1, 6.1.2, 6.1.3, and 6.1.4. In wood maintenance, 6.1.5, 6.1.6, and 6.1.7. The findings of fact, based on the information contained in the application, are: 1, the structure at this address is a contributing resource in the dense fabric development pattern. The proposed project includes facade renovations and equipment installation. The proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the Historic District Design Principles and Standards, also known as guidelines. The zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. The application is not incongruous with the Historic District Design Principles and Standards.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, we
Do
approve
we want to
the...
clarify the change from polycarbonate to glass?
Say again?
Was it-
Yes.
Yeah, it was an amended, it's now glass.
With the amendments as noted and talked about, primarily the change of the polycarbonate to glass on the awning structure.
Okay. Was that not noted in the proposal?
The one I'm looking at says
Says
polycarbonate.
Okay.
Do we also need to clarify that there's not the hydraulic bifolds in the planter box and the trellis that are also in the application?
As well as some of the components that were in earlier application, including the trellis, the window boxes, and the hydraulic bifold doors. Was there anything else? Nope.
My second sentence.
Okay. Moved and seconded, we approve the application. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
I move we approve this certificate of appropriateness,
Second.
Moved and seconded, we issue the COA, you meant, right?
issue to COA.
Okay. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Issue the COA. Okay. Thank you.
And thank you, neighbors, for coming tonight.
Yeah, you must be a good neighbor. Okay, is there any old business?
Thank you. Richard, could you do the second on the COA?
Yes.
Thank you.
I don't think there's any old business. Is there any general public comments? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Terry Bliss, and I'm a resident of downtown New Bern. I came here with a request, but first I want to ground this group just in the purpose of the New Bern guidelines. The purpose is to help preserve the historic character and architectural fabric of New Bern. The intent is not to prevent physical change or impose particular architectural styles, but to moderate changes while protecting architectural gems, reducing dislocation caused by random change. The goal, to maintain our community's individual character and sense of place. So that is why the guidelines exist. I am here to request revisions to the New Bern Historic District Guidelines, which requires a text amendment. On April 2nd, I made this request at the HPC Design Review meeting, and I was declined. Only one HPC member was familiar with text amendments. The HPC and HPA insisted that you could make changes within the HPC itself. You offered to help me by having me submit my concerns in writing, and you told me maybe you would even call me. But that won't get the job done. Any changes to the guidelines do, in fact, require a text amendment, which is a legal process that involves planning and zoning, the Board of Aldermen, and others. The current guidelines and practices beg legal questions, are inconsistently enforced, split the district into have and have-nots, ignore sustainability and resiliency, and undermine the HPC's very purpose, intent, and goals. The last time we met, I shared several examples underscoring issues that need attention. Guideline 2.3.2, if followed, can potentially void appliance warranties. It definitely will if you own a Rinnai. Replacement in kind does not seem to be consistently enforced, and New Bern has a stricter definition than that of the Department of Interior or SHPO. In this meeting, you can choose to initiate or defer my request for a text amendment. Initiating launches the process under your leadership, which is most appropriate and the most direct path. Deferring will shift responsibility to the community, the city, or the Board of Aldermen. The HPC Board is a quasi-judicial authority. You are entrusted with administering legally enforceable guidelines to, quote, maintain our community's individual character and sense of place. Many in the community are frustrated. They want to see the guidelines modernized to fit the needs of today. The most efficient and appropriate path is for the HPC to initiate the process. I've done as you asked, and I put my key concerns in writing. I've also provided suggested solutions and an outline of the text amendment process that leverages already existing scheduled meetings. The timing for action is ripe. The city is currently updating its land use ordinances. There's expertise at your disposal, and there's a clear appetite to do this work now. To start making a change the community needs, the HPC can direct the staff to draft a text amendment. You would do this by one of you making a motion, a different member seconding that motion, then a vote is taken. If the majority of you vote yes, it would result in the staff being directed to draft the amendment. So I'm asking for a vote.
Okay, thank you. I think I described in the earlier meeting that we have a process for making changes, and that process is ongoing, and we're going to complete it. As far as I'm concerned, we're doing what we need to do. So I hear you. I would love to hear specific changes that you'd like, and we'll consider them.
Okay, I have some.
Not tonight. Could
Thank
you just
you. Well,
give us a copy of it?
I would then just like a response in this meeting on the record. You all told me in the last meeting that text amendments were not required to make changes to the guidelines.
I'm not sure. That may or may not be true. I don't know.
Well, can we answer that question
What I
now?
explained to you and what was verified by our staff is that we don't require the alderman's approval to make changes to the standards, and that is a fact. We have, though, stated that we would like to get their approval, and that's our intent. When we make changes, we would submit it to the alderman to make.
Can legal speak to that? The legal process to change a guideline requires a text amendment. That requires the Planning and Zoning Commission as well.
Let me ask our attorney to comment on what you're saying.
Yes, I'm happy to comment. And just for clarity's sake, this portion of your agenda is for public comments, for you to hear members of the public. But since you've asked me to comment and respond, I will. The New Bern design standards, aka guidelines, are incorporated by reference in the land use ordinance. Because they are incorporated in the land use ordinance, they are a part of our code of ordinances. Mm-hmm. The body with the power to change our ordinances is the New Bern Board of Aldermen. Mm-hmm. So the process by which, and if you look at your guidelines, I think it's the second page, you'll see when there have been revisions adopted by the Board of Aldermen. Yeah. And that's a helpful breadcrumb when we think about the process. So if you all were inclined to consider any revisions to the guidelines, which I see under the next agenda item, under new business, there's a conversation about such things. Yeah. You all would have a discussion about any proposed changes. A majority of you, if you were in support of said changes, would then send that information to the Board of Aldermen, and then the Board of Aldermen would consider whether those changes would be appropriate. Yeah. And if they agree with you, then the ordinance, essentially the language in the ordinance wouldn't change, but the guidelines would change, which are incorporated by reference.
Yeah. Okay.
So for clarification,
I stand corrected. We are required to get their approval, but the process to get that, I would say, remains the same. We have an ongoing process of looking at changes. We make them, and we get the approval of the alderman. And that's ongoing, and that's going to continue. And if you'd like to input specific changes that you'd like to see us make, we'd be happy to have them. Send them to Matt in writing, and we'll consider them.
I have included them here. I would like the opportunity to capture them here for public consumption. If you decline that, that is fine. I will get it out via other channels. But I do want to clarify, a text amendment is the process to change the guidelines.
Yeah.
You cannot change the guidelines without a text
Our
amendment.
guidelines to change the standards is just what our attorney described. Thank you. That's the end of that one.
It requires a text amendment.
Yeah.
I also want to clarify for you that a text amendment can be initiated in one of three ways. You can initiate a text amendment.
Yeah.
That is the best way to do it.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, then a city department head can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't do that, then the Board of Aldermen can do that. I'm here asking you to initiate the process for a text amendment which gets a staff assigned to it, which is the leadership position.
And I'm sorry, I didn't catch, what are you asking a text amendment about? Do you have a specific text amendment?
Can I share a
I think the
couple
easiest way to
examples?
do is that the chairman suggested is if you can submit it in writing so we have a chance to look at it.
We're going to be here all night unless we get to an end here. I would like you to submit in writing what you'd like. And we will, as always, use our attorney to determine the correct course of action.
Will this be put in the public record also?
Every document, not every, but documents received by the HPC are public records.
Okay, so this will be part of the public record.
Documents received by the HPC.
Do I need
are
to
public
physically
record.
hand that? And has that document been received by
It
the
has
HPC?
been received by the HPC administrator,
Yeah.
who is the staff member assigned to the HPC, who has received a document which is now a part of the public record.
Okay, that is great, thank you. So it will go in the public record, and the decision is to decline to vote to start the text amendment process.
Right.
Yes?
Yes.
Well, you can't start a process without knowing what you're changing.
Yeah.
The process does start if...
Well, we've already told you that started. You refuse to acknowledge that. We have an ongoing process, but you declined to accept it.
I just literally gave you the document,
You
but
sure
I
did.
think you're confused on
I'm
how
not
the process
confused.
starts.
I think you're confused.
Can the attorney address the process to do a text amendment?
Mr. Chair, perhaps, maybe I can be helpful, because I think that we're talking past each other.
Yeah.
If a board or commission is going to initiate a text amendment, they have to say what text they want.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you all are inclined to change your guidelines, then you would need to say which specific guidelines you want to change and what language you want it
Yeah.
to be.
Right.
At this moment, there is no language before you to consider.
Yeah.
Right? So if you all are inclined to change your guidelines, you can go
I
to
actually
the next.
did provide language.
Mr. Chair, as I'm addressing the board,
Yeah.
you can, under your next item on your agenda called new business, evaluate language that has been presented to you in advance of this meeting.
Yeah.
Customarily, what you all have done is when there are considerations to change the guidelines, that language is presented to you at least a week advance of the meeting, so you have an opportunity to review
Right.
it, digest it, recommend changes, and have robust discussion about it.
Yeah.
So if you all want to proceed with that conversation, I think you have an opportunity to do so tonight, later in your agenda.
Yeah.
If there's additional information that you've received from members of the public that you would like to consider, that information can be disseminated to you all during the normal course of
Yeah.
business for this board, and you can consider it at the appropriate time.
Okay. We're going to consider changes later in the agenda, and those are ones which we've discussed previously, and those are the only ones that we're going to deal with tonight. And it's just as my compatriot has described, we have an ongoing process where we consider changes, and when we resolve to make them, we vote on it and we send them to the alderman. That's the process.
Thank you. Just before I go, I do want to clarify that the process for a text amendment, you do not have to have the draft in front of you. You can initiate the process, which
Yeah.
starts to explore the guidelines.
Yeah.
That is how the legal
We're
process
beating the dead horse.
works.
We have a process and we're
it's
using
the
it.
nuance really
We thank you for your input.
matter. I did what you asked, and
Yeah.
I am not wrong about how that process
Right.
starts. I will follow up. Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, revisions to historic district
I
design.
have a question that we haven't seen anything other than.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it appeared. Was there one you wanted
Well,
to talk?
it was added when the agenda was published, and since then, the updates committee was consulted and decided that there were too many issues with the items we were bringing up that they preferred to take it back to the committee.
Yeah.
Okay, so
That was
I would move that we
That was the
continue
AVC.
discussion.
It was the AVCs. That we
Continue any discussion of revisions to the June 18th meeting at 5:30 PM.
I'm sorry. We would have the discussion yeah, okay.
And that in advance, we would have seen
Yeah,
proposals.
yeah.
We won't see them in May, but perhaps the
Yeah.
June design review.
Yeah, it's on here for the reasons the Matt stated. It concerned the AVCs, which was a very complicated discussion in the design review.
Yeah.
We decided to take a committee and simplify it.
I understand,
Come back.
yeah.
Okay.
So I made a motion.
Made a motion.
Will we have an opportunity to review the new
Absolutely.
material that's been brought
What you
forward?
see will be sent out in advance, yeah. And will be discussed at the design review.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, do you want a motion or just?
There's a motion pending on the floor. We're waiting for a second.
Second.
Okay, moved and second that we have the
That we continue
proposed change
any
at the
discussion
June meeting.
To June 18th.
Yeah, okay. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Revisions to the minor works list?
And so with that one, I was not able to have time to finish that for this meeting, so that will also have to be continued.
Okay. We need a motion to continue
Yes,
that?
sir.
Okay, motion to continue
So moved.
changes
So
to
moved.
the minor. Okay, moved and
Second.
seconded. We continue the revisions to the minor work list to the June meeting. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
The June design review meeting.
The June design review would be, yeah.
No.
For consideration.
Consideration at the June meeting.
Well,
But it will be discussed at the design review.
Yeah, it'll be on the agenda for the June meeting,
Yeah.
but
For the
discussed.
June regular meeting.
Right,
Yeah.
June
Okay.
18th.
And I have to change that. Okay.
Okay, do you have items to report?
So with regard to the COAs, nothing unless anyone has questions about any of them. I do have the two items for item D there. The first is that next Friday is the CLG training, the Certified Local Government Training for Historic Preservation commissions and others interested in historic preservation here in New Bern for free so that's Friday the 25th of April, I believe, correct? Mm-hmm. And that will be at the Masonic Temple, St. John's Masonic Temple on Hancock Street and Johnson Street there. There it is an all-day workshop, essentially, starting at 9 o'clock and going till 4:30. You'll be on your own for lunch for given about an hour and 15 minutes for that. There will be various topics, some which are related mostly in the morning for historic preservation commissioners. And then in the afternoon is both for for historic preservation commissioners and the general public. I'm just generalizing about the interests. The ones in the afternoon will involve tax credits, architectural history, and resiliency for historic structures, historic properties. So those are things that have been expressed as an interest by our local community, the various historic organizations in town are interested in those topics. And we will be hosting, New Bern will be hosting that event, but there will be many other people from around the state who will also be attending. There are other trainings in other parts of the state as well, similar, but not quite the same as this one with those particular topics. And but we expect that most of the attendees will be from around this region because it doesn't come to this region that often. So we're hoping if you all would attend, that would be awesome. But you do need to register by tomorrow, and I think I've sent everybody the link at least twice to come to that. But also, please pass it on. It's open to all the sessions are open to the public. They're all free, so you can feel free to attend and have partners also attend. Your kids and your grandparents, whatever it is, all attend. Your friends, your relatives, but primarily anybody who's interested in historic preservation of their property, and of course you guys being commissioners. So this also counts towards our CLG, Certified Local Government certification, which, by the way, today I received a letter from them. I included that letter in your extra little packet there. Back in December, we submitted this 10-page annual report to indicate what we've been up to and what we've accomplished and what's happened in our area. But the letter, which looks like this in your little packet, spells out that we passed the test. We continue to be a certified local government, and the big advantage of that is that all of our private residents have the ability or the opportunity, let's say, to use the services of the State Historic Preservation Office, and especially their regional experts to give you advice on your particular historic properties, ranging from what should I do with my roofing or my foundation, or is this a historic element that I have here, or is this just a recreation? All that, any question you have about your historic property, they will try to help you answer that. They have been very expertise in their evaluations and advice. And we have, in fact, the commission has used the advice of that individual many times in the past for its proceedings. So we consider them to be experts.
Who is the leader for that in Greenville now?
Who's what?
Who is the leader with the state for our region? Didn't we hire a new guy?
Oh, yes. The new person, his name is Chris Stone.
Okay.
He's been on the job here now for, I think, about 6 to 9 months, something like that. So if you haven't already run into him, I can send you all the contact information, but his contact information is available on the State Historic Preservation website. He's already proven himself to be quite the expert. They didn't hire him because they had nobody else. He's obviously a very, very good expert in the field already. So let's see.
Do you know on that training,
Yep.
You know, on that training, do you know what time the afternoon sessions are going to start? Do we get word out to the public?
Yes, I probably do, but I was not able to get to the actual agenda yet.
Okay.
So,
if you get a chance, can you send that out so that we can send it out to our
yes.
public members?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. But just in general, after lunch.
Yeah.
So.
I didn't know if that was like a 1 o'clock, 1:15, 1:30.
That's right.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, that's right. And we also will be providing, especially for our out-of-town guests, maps of parking and restaurants and things like that. So, let's see. The other item, let's see, there's another one, is There- Oh, yes, thank you. I have an update on the terms and the replacements for the various members of the commission. Turns out there are 4 people whose terms are up this year. 2 are their second term and 2 are their first term. So we have Molly and let's see, and Tim Thompson. The 2 of them are on their first term, so they're just looking to be reappointed if you want to. I've talked to them about with whom they need to speak. And then it's Jim Bisbee and Trip Ure, whose terms are up. The second terms are up this year, so they must step down. And so we will be looking for 2 new people to take their place. In the case of Jim, the person who appoints him is the Ward 3 alderman, which would be Mr. Astor. Yep. And then for Tripp, it is the mayor. Okay. All right. So that was that. I know there's one more thing. I only said 2, but then I suddenly realized there were 3, but now I can't remember the third one. Sorry. Obviously, if I need to, I will send you all an email.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just a reminder for folks, there will not be a May
Oh, yes,
meeting.
that's a good one. Yes, there are no HPC meetings in May. Both the design review and the regular meeting were scheduled already at the beginning of the year not to occur in May. So the next 2 meetings are in June. The design review is on June 4th.
4th.
Yes. And the regular meeting is June 18th. All right.
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved, seconded.
Second.
All in favor, state aye. Aye. Opposed? Meeting's adjourned.